later. And after a splendid qualifying session, there is the man who's on pole. Who'll be partnered by Tim Sugden in that glorious McLaren F1 And alongside, on the outside of the front row, there is John Greasley in that splendid Porsche GT1. Well, everybody else taking their places, and as you can see, rain here at Silverstone. And it's been that question: do you go with slicks? Is it dry enough to go with the slick, or do you go intermediates? Well, the majority have gone with an intermediate tyre, but there are a few crazy heads out there on slicks. Rolling lap, of course, to start us off. And we're on board with Allard Kalf. To the inside of us, the Dodge Viper, just building up the revs now, and you can see the spray coming from underneath those tyres. And it really is treacherous conditions here if you're on slicks. Not the way to go, perhaps. And we get a green flag, and there's a problem straight away. Julian Bailey put the power on and straight into the pit lane wall. Meantime, the rest of them making their way furiously down. You can see bodywork flying up as somebody collected the bonnet there of Julian Bailey's Lister out of Cops Corner and on the drag down to Maggots. A little left-hand flick. And straight out into front has gone Ian Flux. Fluxy looking well set there, got a cracking start. And ahead of us, there is the Viper with Kurt Luby at the wheel of that glorious 8-litre V10 machine. He's clipping the apex, taking a fair amount of curbing there, you have to say. Greasley there in second, and Luby moving up into third place. That demotes Steve O'Rourke in the McLaren. Everybody else making their way through. Look out, they're tiptoeing their way through, except for that man there, Julian Bailey. His race is run, and that is the end of the day for that Lister. Let's just have a look at it again. Well, great camera work there, right to the feet of our cameraman and straight along the pit wall. Managed to spin it round without too many dramas. Well, there was no contact there at all from anybody around Julian Bailey. A self-made mistake, and although he managed to get a lap in, he was to retire into the pit lane, as we saw. Good scrap going on here. This is William Hewland in the other of the Listers. Listers, of course, a real force now in the Privilege Insurance GT Championship, looking back from O'Rourke. And again, he's taking it very steadily through the slightly damp areas. And you can see a dry line actually starting to appear. And Hewland just going to the inside, and he'll take that position. So Hewland further demoting O'Rourke. And of course, this a two-driver race, as are all the rounds of the Privilege Insurance GT Championship. And that, of course, gives the opportunity for a driver change. We'll see some of those. They come either 15 minutes after the start of the race or prior to the final 15 minutes. You must change during that time. Or if you're a lone driver, then you have a stationary period in the pits. Well, there is John Greasley on his way through Copse. And he is already closing in on some of the back markers. There is Bob Sands in 77, behind him Gary Ward in the Mirage. And here is Greasley, lights on to warn the others that he's on his way through, and clearly his tyre choice paying off for him, although he is taking things very steadily through there with all that horsepower at his beck and call. And there is O'Rourke losing a place. Well, that time Hewland goes past O'Rourke, so he's having a great run there in the Lister. And we're back on board with Allard Kalf. He's the next man behind that red McLaren. Underneath bridge they go of Steve O'Rourke, and closing up. Puts the power. Look at him though, working away at the wheel. Just shows you how greasy it is. And that's because Allard Kalf is one of those out on slicks. Well, he's paying off for him at the moment. Looks to the inside of Steve O'Rourke, and he glides through, spitting fire like a dragon from the back of that V8 through Luffield. Turning in, keep the power, just balance it and don't put too much in there. And then as it opens out, the power comes thrusting in. Up ahead, there is Hewland going through on the inside of the Viper, and we are going through to take the GT2 class lead on the completion of that lap. Hewland in 10, and there behind him is the Lotus V8 with Allard Kalf at the wheel and drafting as they do through Copse. And the driver change is starting now. Well, John Greasley, one of the early ones in, and Magnus Wellinder will take control of that. Just got his little booster cushion there, just a slight difference in the size of those two, so saves messing about with altering seats. They're stationary, of course. There in the 33 car, that's the father and son partnership of the Saunders in their Porsche GT2. And here is the McLaren, and if further evidence were needed that the track is drying, well, slick tyres being bolted on to that McLaren, and that is going to give him hopefully more grip. Well, back out on the circuit, also finding grip. Remember, started on slicks and still out there, still going to do a driver change yet, and passing another of the back markers. That's the 52 Dodge Viper. and through, again picking up places as all the others ahead of him are stopping for their pit stops and driver changes. Here's another, and this time it's Kurt Luby who comes in. He's handing over to Richard Dean. And again, another one changing to slicks. Well, here is John Greasley's partner, Magnus Verlander. There is Ian Flux going through in the white car, not yet changed, remember. And John Greasley a lap behind, but gaining all the time. Got the Harrier in front of him. We'll try and put a move on the Harrier to get that out of the way as he comes onto the main straight again. Yes, gets through there safely, and in fact the Harrier looking to pit there. Well, picking up places. And in comes Allard Kalb. And he will hand over to Graham Morris. Now, of course, this is a chance for them because they're already on slicks. The tyre technician's just expecting those to make sure that they're sound and look to be okay. So that will help them with their time. And meantime, John Greasley trying to get on it. But there he is. He's back in front of Ian Flux. And, of course, Flux at the moment losing something like 4 seconds a lap. He's still out there on wet. The others, of course, are on slicks. And that made a disadvantage for Flux, but when that pit stop comes, maybe they'll think about changing them. We'll have to see, though, how it all develops. And a problem there for the Marcos. That's Bob Sands' car in the gravel trap on the exit. Now, that is in a very dodgy place, because that's the wind-out point. And into the pit lane comes our leader. Well, out of the car, and the marshal's got to think about changing that. Meantime, Ian Flux also getting out of the car. Just words exchanged there with Jake Ulrich, and well, they're deciding, it looks like they're going to leave those wet tyres on for Jake for this final stint. Now that will help them. Well, this will help them too, because the safety car is out, and that, I'm sure, will be to remove that Marcus of Bob Sands and Graham Purvis, which was lodged. Yes, there it is. Well, the tow truck getting it out of the way, and that will be moved to a position of safety. So the lights are out on top of the safety car, and look how this has closed the field up now. Out front there, John Greasley, or rather Magnus Verlander, having taken over. Tim Sugden in the McLaren, and Sugden moving to the inside of the Mustang. That's the 98 car there. Down a lap. Rob Shirl and Dave Warnock campaigning that this year. The rest streaming through, and all running a little bit wide there. Paul Evans, hold on there. Oh, he's lost it. Into the wall. Well, no, well held, Paul Evans, I think just glancing the wall there, a bit of bodywork flailing off that. Mind you, should he have lost it in the first place? And they're talking about bodywork, tyre problems there for the Harrier as that went through, smoke pouring off it. But here is our leader under bridge. And behind him there, the Lotus, well, that's leading the GT2 class, but a lap down, but third overall. And there, going through in the McLaren, is Tim Sugden. And can Sugden, whilst all this traffic is around, the final couple of corners for Magnus Verlander, can Sugden take advantage, or is it to be a victory for the Porsche GT1? Well, the checker flag in hand, and about to take that checker flag is Magnus Verlander, so a victory for Greasley and Verlander. The Lotus will come through to take victory in the GT2 class, but Tim Sugden is confirmed in second place, just under 4 seconds behind, with Ian Flux and Jake Ulrich fourth, Nielsen and Tyring in fifth, and Luby and Dean in the Viper taking that sixth place. Welcome back to